ready? You ready? Should we do it without an intro? Should I just count it off?
No, that's
Do you
too
like
hard.
the intro?
No.
Okay, there we go. Sing a song to the Lord, go on and lift your voice. Sing a song to the Lord, make a joyful noise. Sing a song to the Lord, go on and lift your voice. La 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 la, make a joyful noise. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, make a joyful noise. Sing a song to the Lord, go on and clap your hands. Sing a song to the Lord, stomp your feet and dance. Sing a song to the Lord, go on and clap your hands. La 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 la, stomp your feet and dance. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, stomp your feet and dance. Clap your hands and stomp your feet. God made the whole world to sing. He fills our hearts with all His love, so we can lift our voices loud. Sing a song to the Lord, go shake your tambourine. Sing a song to the Lord, lift your voices ring. Sing a song to the Lord, go shake your tambourine. La 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 la, let your voices ring. Clap your hands, clap your hands and stomp your feet. God made the whole world to sing. Fills our hearts with all His love, so we can lift our voices up. Sing a song to the Lord, go on and lift your voice. Sing a song to the Lord, make a joyful noise. Sing a song to the Lord, go on and lift your voice. La 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 la, make a joyful noise. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, make a joyful. One more time. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, make a joyful
Ehi compare, ci può suonare, chi si suona un friscaletto, e come si suona un friscaletto e tippiti tippiti ta.
What
Ehi
in the
compare,
world?
ci può
that
suonare,
Nick?
chi si suona un saxofona, e come si suona un saxofona, tu 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 tu
What?
un
Is
saxofona.
that a... It is.
Ehi compare, ci può suonare, chi si suona un mandolino.
Nick, what are you doing on the roof?
Oh, hey Brandon, I'm just sending letters.
You're letters?
Yeah,
It looks like paper airplanes.
well, I mean it is. They're letters, and I'm sending them with paper airplanes as letters.
Nick, get off the roof. You're gonna hurt yourself.
All right.
Tippity tippity ta.
Jump, jump, jump into the light, light, light.
Run, run, run away from what's not right. Jump, jump, jump out of the dark, dark, dark. Run to Jesus and give Him your heart. Sing that again. Here we go. Jump, jump, jump into the light, light, light. Run, run, run away from what's not right. Jump, jump, jump out of the dark, dark, dark. Run to Jesus and give him your heart. He is alive. He is alive. He is alive. Alive. Sing that one more time. He is alive. He is alive. He is alive. Alive. Jump, jump, jump into the light, light, light. Run, run, run away from what's not right. Jump, jump, jump out of the dark, dark, dark. Run to Jesus and give him your heart.
Nick, you're lucky you didn't hurt yourself. You're sending letters?
Letters.
Paper airplane letters.
How do you send your letters?
Post office, an addressed envelope, stamps.
Good point. Good point.
Who are you sending letters to?
Okay, so, Brandon, like Peter did with his church back in the day, I'm sending letters to the church.
Okay, and
Yeah, so, here's why, okay? Last week, you're going to be super proud of me. You ready?
Right.
Last week, we learned that the church is not the building, right? But the church is the people, right?
you got it.
So, here's my idea. I was sending letters to the church so that we could all be together again.
Okay. I get it. You're missing your friends, you're missing your brothers and sisters.
Yep.
You're sending a letter to tell them to come back to the building to gather as a church, the people.
Yeah.
One
right.
problem. Remember, we have a rule in place by our governor that says we aren't supposed to get together. We're trying to be good neighbors and working all together on this.
Brandon, I don't like that rule.
I understand. There's all kinds of times when we come up against rules that we don't like. It's actually really helpful because Peter wrote in his letter to the church that was spread out this very thing. What to do when you face rules you don't agree with. Look at what it says here in verse 13. Be subject for the Lord's sake to every human institution, whether it be to the emperor as supreme or to governors as sent by him who punish those who do evil and praise those who do good. Listen to what Peter says. It's basically obey the rules, not for your sake, but for the Lord's sake. It's following God when we follow and obey the rules of our leaders.
Okay, but doesn't the Bible also say that we should meet together? God wants the church to be together, right?
Our memory verse actually helps with this. Peter talks about what to do when we come up against rules that we don't like, because we're his children, we're free, and our only authority is God. Let's check out these videos that the kids submitted, this week's memory verse.
Live as people who are free, not using your freedom as a cover-up for evil, but living like servants of God. 1 Peter 2:16. 1 Peter 2:16. Live as people who are free, not using your freedom as a cover-up for evil, but living as servants of God.
Brandon, free servant? That doesn't make any sense. That's like one of those oxymorons, right?
Ah, yes, like jumbo shrimp,
Shrimp and potatoes.
Living dead, freezer burn, plastic silverware, pretty ugly, loud whisper, old news,
crash landing.
steel wool. What was that?
The verse.
Right.
So yeah, like an oxymoron, Peter is giving us kind of like a new way to think about it. He's saying instead of obeying because we have no choice, it's our choice to obey. When we obey the authorities, what Peter is telling us is that makes God look awesome. And remember, that's the whole point of what God is doing in building his church. We are being built up as living stones to make God look awesome. Verse 9 says, to proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness and into marvelous light. I'll tell you what, just like Peter has done to this point, every action that he asks us to do, everything he asks us to do, he always surrounds with a way to think. And so it's really helpful to get a new way to think that's going to help us with this action. It's hard sometimes to follow rules that we disagree with, but Peter has an answer for us. Let's take a break. Let's sing a song. We'll come back. We'll find the answer.
Okay.
For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. So loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. Eternal life, eternal life, eternal life. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Eternal life, eternal life, eternal life. Yeah, yeah, yeah. John 3:16. Let me hear you scream it. John 3:16. Let me hear you sing. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. So loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. Eternal life, eternal life, eternal life. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Eternal life, eternal life, eternal life. Yeah, yeah, yeah. John 3:16. Let me hear you scream it. John 3:16. Let me hear you sing it. John 3:16. Let me hear you sing it. John 3:16. Let me hear you sing it.
So Peter's given us something to do, but like he always does in his letters, he gives us a way to think about it that helps us to do what it is that we need to do. Do you remember last week we talked about cornerstone?
Right. I remember that.
Yeah. What is a cornerstone?
Well, cornerstone is the first stone of a building. It's the stone that all the other stones of the building are lined up with.
That's exactly right. And in this church that God is building, who is our cornerstone?
Yeah, Jesus is our cornerstone.
That's exactly right. So if Jesus is our cornerstone, then we are picked up, shaped to look just like Jesus, lined up in a pattern, and so we know that we are doing what we are supposed to do when we are lined up with and look like Jesus. And that's exactly what Peter does. He reminds us of what Jesus did in regards to authority. What did Jesus do when there was rules that maybe he didn't like? That helps us in knowing what to do. Take a look at verse 21 with me. Verse 21 and 22 say, "For this you have been called, because Christ also suffered for you, leaving you an example so that you might follow in his steps. He committed no sin, neither was deceit found in his mouth. When he was reviled, he did not revile in return. When he suffered, he did not threaten, but continued entrusting himself to him who judges justly." Did you catch what it was saying? It's talking specifically about after Jesus was arrested. Do you remember Jesus was arrested? How was he treated, and what did Jesus do as a response to that?
Yeah, they beat him up and they spit on him, and he didn't fight back at all.
He's powerful. He could have left. He could have wiped them all out with just a word, but he didn't do that, did he?
No, you're right.
Let me try this in another way. You love God, right?
Yeah,
You want other people to love God too.
of course.
You want everyone to know how good he is.
Absolutely.
When we follow authorities, when we act like Jesus does, when we act like Jesus did, we make God look good, because even though we don't have to follow the rules, we choose to. And that pleases God. And that makes God look awesome. And that's our whole job as living stones.
Okay, so instead of sending letters to try and get people to come to the church, maybe I should send my letters to tell people how awesome Jesus is and to encourage them and love on them.
That's a great idea, Nick. We could write letters of encouragement to each other.
Yeah.
In the same way that Peter did. Who do you have? Who can you think of that you could send a letter to?
My neighbors.
Friends you haven't seen for a while.
Yeah.
Classmates.
My dog. Wait. He sleeps in my bed.
Nick, I love that you're learning all that you can from this letter from Peter in the Bible. It shows me that you love God and that you really love his word and that you know it's the one place where we can find truth. Kids, Peter is reminding us that we are God's children, that we're living stones being built up as a spiritual house. Why? To make God look awesome. We're always going to come up against some rule that we disagree with, some leader that we don't like. But when we look and we think about what Jesus did, he was mistreated. They said things about him that weren't true. They mocked him. They made fun of him. But he didn't respond. And he followed the rules. He followed the authority. He's our cornerstone. He's our example. And so we want to make God look awesome because we want people to know and love God. We hope you come back with us next week on Outward Kids Online.